At any moment, President Trump is expected to go on patrol in D.C., riding alongside law enforcement and military personnel to witness firsthand the impact of his law and order crackdown, which so far it has delivered results. D.C. had a murder-free week as Attorney General Pam Bondi touted 77 more arrests last night in the federal takeover. Trump is following in the footsteps of his cabinet, who showed up at Union Station in D.C. yesterday. Vice President Vance, Pete Hegseth, and Stephen Miller visiting guardsmen, but they also got heckled by left-wing protesters.
The voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots, they have no connections to the city, they have no families they are raising in this city. They're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
The media also expressing some outrage at Vance and company.
For them to talk about that these policies or bringing the National Guard is to actually make it safer for Black communities is actually insulting.
But J.D. Vance took his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination to Union Station today to bring Shake Shack burgers to the National Guard troops.
They did not go to Union Station yesterday for fun. They did not go there to talk to the National Guard. They knew there were protesters there. They went there to be on TV and to get these moments and get everyone talking about it.
Greg, it occurs to me that the Democrats are going back in time, not just to 2020 when they wanted to defund the police, but farther back in time, like the 60s or 70s when they were against military.
Yeah, they can't win because their reflex is instinctive support for the bad guy because they've been brainwashed by their hatred for law enforcement, their hatred for Trump. So they end up defending the worst of the worst. You know, carjackers are just misguided teens. Spousal abusers are the Maryland dad. An alleged pedophile. He almost made it to be D.C. dad, but then he got caught. If terrorists flew planes into the building, they would blame it on Trump's love for tall buildings. They'd find a way. I don't think that the media has gotten to the realization that they can't do what they used to do. You know, you can't just grab disturbing footage of an arrest and portray the arrestee as a victim, because in a few hours, we always find out the guy is bad news. I love the ride along with Trump. He should try to make an arrest, maybe tase a molester. I would like that. And what Stephen Miller said, you know, it's ironic. Those are the guys that are defending the Black citizens of D.C. It's not white liberals. Those are the guys. You can paint them in their dark light as some kind of evil fascists, but they're the people that are actually making the city safer. And he's right about those protesters. We get them out here. Not one of them is under the age of 77. And if you go up, it's sad. And if you go up to one of the women, because they'll be yelling, and you go, "Excuse me, madam, where is your husband?" Their heads will explode. One last thing, the Dems willfully assume that systems cannot be corrupted, no matter what it is, whether it's asylum or transgenders in prison, illegals, criminal justice reform. They just think everybody's going to play by the rules. One guy actually claimed that ICE abducted his wife. And everybody freaked out until you saw video of him dragging something that looked like a body from his house. But Democrats can't assume that, like, they know how to game the system because you will believe any lie that comes your way. That guy ended up fleeing the country because he was able to lie about what happened to his wife, which he obviously killed.
Control Room, could you please play the other soundbite from Vice President Vance talking about taking back cities?
If you've got the political will to enforce the law, you can make even cities like D.C. safe again, and that's what we're demonstrating. I hope the American people just recognize that you don't have to live with lawlessness. You don't have to live with third world murder rates. If you just take control of these cities, you can make them safe places to live in.
Jesse, this reminded me of something that used to drive me a little bit crazy during the Biden administration, which is like when they weren't doing anything for like a long time, and you think, well, didn't you go there to solve problems? Like, isn't that what you want to do? And they're solving problems, maybe on warp speed, might make some people uncomfortable. But I do imagine that there are people in other cities like Philly that you're familiar with saying, could we get some help around here?
Yeah, they should send the Guard everywhere. Biden could never walk the beat because he couldn't walk. And Kamala never did it because she was afraid of her prosecutor's shadow. I love that Trump's going out there like a general to inspect the troops. Sometimes I go walking through my pod to see my team booking and cutting tape. And I shake their hands and I introduce myself, and
Buy 'em a
they're
burger.
inspired. I'm inspired. I'm with Greg. This is the best episode of Cops we're ever going to see. I hope he does a field sobriety test on some sloppy drunk kid from Georgetown. I hope someone they arrest and they pull drugs out of their pocket and Trump's like, that's a lot of crack. I hope he goes out with the Vice Squad and finds Adam Schiff trying to score some dope and some women at some seedy hotel on the wrong side of the tracks.
Women?
Didn't say that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And the media's all worried about them getting heckled. Of course, it's D.C. Any other politician would have astroturfed the station and had a bunch of guys in MAGA hats saying 4 more years. These guys didn't care. They rolled up, they rolled out, and that's fine. They keep saying, the left, even though she's to my right, that crime is down. Okay, homicides hit a 30-year high in 2023 in D.C. So they're down a little bit this last year. In an election year, that's suspicious because they just started juicing the numbers. We just found out they had to suspend a guy for going into the computers at his precinct and downgrading felonies to misdemeanors. Jessica, did you see my show last night?
Yeah, I was glued to the TV.
Good. So you saw the guy who runs the police union in D.C. say that when they get onto a scene and there's a kid with bullet holes all in his abdomen and one of the witnesses won't cooperate because it's gang-related, a captain will come onto the scene and say, you know what, we're not going to call it a shooting. We're just calling it taking an injured guy to the hospital. Or if there's a stick-up, armed robbery, guy's a gun, takes your cash and your phone, they'll come along and say, you know what, not armed robbery, we'll just call it a theft. It's a misdemeanor. I wouldn't be surprised if the word went out in an election year last year in D.C. from maybe somebody in the White House, they have to make the crime numbers go down. And I bet it's bigger than just Washington, D.C. I bet the word went out, and that's why you had all these, oh, crime's down. Trust me, Jessica, you guys, when we start looking under the hood, you're going to see a bunch of fake numbers.
One thing that amazes me about the contours of this debate as it unfolds is that the right is making it about crime and public safety. I'm not sure what the left is trying to make it about, but Jessica, I'll give you a shot.
I think that the left is trying to make it about states' rights and being able to be in control of your own cities. J.D. Vance makes that argument to Laura Ingraham, like, if you just let us in to take control, but it's states' rights when it suits the right, and then they don't care about it at all when it doesn't suit them. And we should be able to take care of our own cities. That doesn't mean that everything has been run perfectly, of course, but in terms of these doctored numbers, for instance, and the trend lines, well, they were good enough to do President Trump and Kash Patel. I mean, Kash Patel stood up in that press conference.
They didn't know they were doctored. DC isn't a state.
Shouldn't they know? Okay. Sorry. Well, but J.D. Vance is talking about the whole country, that if they just let them in, and they went into Los Angeles as well. Anyway, I think Donald Trump going out on patrol will be a huge win for him. It'll be like McDonald's, it'll be like the garbage man, and we'll be talking about it for a long time. It's made for social media. It's perfect in that sense. And, I defended an alleged child rapist yesterday by accident. So I don't really have many legs to stand on. But I am going to, which I apologize for. And I would like that to be duly noted. But, you say like it's all old white hippies that are protesting this. But there's mass disapproval of what they're doing within D.C. And it's not just from old white people. It's from Black people. It's from Latino people. And when you take
whenever
$1 billion,
they're interviewed, they're like, thank God I can actually use the subway.
They took $1 billion out of the D.C. budget, and they said they were going to put it back, and they haven't. And that money would have gone to supporting school programs. It would have been going to pay cops, for instance. Donald Trump should work with Muriel Bowser and the police chief to make D.C. safer instead of this authoritarian takeover.
I lived there for many years. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, Kennedy. It doesn't get better. It hadn't gotten better.
Well, I think you can look at public safety the same way you look at schools. And no matter how much money, how many millions of dollars you put into a student throughout their life in that system, they don't come out literate on the other end. Muriel Bowser had an opportunity to work with the president. And at first she said she was going to, and then she did an about face. I don't disagree with you. I actually don't like the National Guard being the ones who are in charge of law enforcement. I think if you are looking at D.C., under the federal umbrella as part of home rule, then I think it should be federal law enforcement. And, that may be splitting hairs, but I've always had an issue with the militarization of law enforcement. And I think we have enough federal law enforcement that they could be doing a great job right now. And, you've got Homeland Security agents, you've got U.S. Marshals, you've got FBI agents, and I think you could make a coalition and do the same thing. And I think what the vice president is saying is if this has been so effective in a week, that every crime-plagued city in America can do the same thing without federal law enforcement, without militarization, and they should be doing that. But they have abdicated their responsibility to the citizens of these cities, especially in the poorest districts. So you get to a point where, when you only have just shy of 300 homicides in a year, we want to throw a parade. No, every single one of those lives meant something, but not when you're trying to fudge the numbers with fuzzy math in order to show a better case for yourself. Because the bad case is what people feel when they walk around. People feel unsafe in D.C. You can say whatever you want, but if you feel bad, you're not going to want to live there and you're not going to want to visit.
All right. At any moment, President Trump is set to go on patrol with law enforcement, so we will keep an eye on that and bring it to you. But coming up next, Gavin Newsom is going nuclear in the gerrymander arms race.
I'm going to punch these sons of in the mouth.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.